So can you please start by introducing yourself?
Sure. So I'm Razmig, co-founder and CEO of Viki. We've been around for about 3-4 years, and this is home for us now, so good to be here.
Oh, okay. So just a little bit of the background on what's Viki, briefly, please.
So we are a global TV and movie site. We stream content from about 50 or 60 different countries. What's different about us is there's a comma in our tagline. It's global TV, but it's powered by fans. We license content and it can be translated in 40, 50 languages in a matter of weeks. And what this does is it takes content from a home country to the rest of the world with an impact of about 4x in the growth. So you can put Spanish subtitles on, let's say, Japanese anime, open up Latin America. You can take a Turkish show, put Arabic, open up the Middle East. So we're global TV, but we're powered by people like you and I, passionate fans who open up the world.
Well, that's cool, because actually, I like watching Korean movies, and that's what I do. I can watch it in, Thai subtitle, which is, awesome.
Viki.
Yeah, so, yes, of course. So tell me, a little bit about your background, because you have, interesting, story, you from Egypt, right? Originally, and then you moved to Japan, and then the US first, and then Japan, and then Singapore. So let's do that, journey.
Way back when. Yeah, born and raised in Cairo, ethnically Armenian. At 14, I visited the US with my sister, I think got the bug. Saved money for 2 years, left for Egypt at 16, and stayed in high school. Basically, after high school, I went to college in the US, in the Bay Area. After that, I worked in management consulting, found my way to Dentsu, the ad agency in Japan. Marketing planning group, 12. I was working on NTT Docomo.
Okay.
So mobile accounts, and Japan was way ahead. It was interesting to see technology. That's 5 years ahead of the curve. Then I went to grad school, and Viki was one of 2 projects I was working around on as a student in a grad school in the Bay Area. And both of them are doing well in their own respects, and just happy to take something from a seed level with collaborators. And it really does take a village. So it's fantastic to see little things kind of sprouting.
Yeah, that's cool. So I'm curious though, since, you from the Valley itself, you live in the Bay, so why you choose Singapore as your headquarters instead of, sitting down in the Valley where almost everyone wants to go there, so?
I mean, it happened kind of randomly. Frankly, I moved for love. I moved because my wife needed to be here, and we've been moving for each other since high school. Actually, first boyfriend, first girlfriend, we met in high school. We're both exchange students. But Singapore also made sense. We grew the initial team here, and we started actually out of hackerspace. I was renting out a chair. I think it was $20 back then. And a little bit of a shady place, but it was fantastic to build the initial team. Then it made sense because my co-founders were in Korea, and it was much easier to work in the same time zone, if you will, an hour difference. Then they moved here. As we built the team, also it became clear it's a lot easier to license from here. Travel around to Hong Kong, Japan, etc., and get.
You mean logistically?
Licenses. Logistically and business-wise, and maybe I'm a little stubborn. I didn't feel we need to be in the valley to build a startup. We can build a good company from wherever. Sometimes it's good to be under the radar, not go after the press, and build a good product. When the product is ready, I think the rest of it falls into place.
Well, so you said you moved here for love, so family is a big deal for you, obviously. I was just chatting with you. You have 2 kids right now.
I do.
So, well, you have an interesting story, like I said, you drop off school for a while just to start your own business, do your own venture. What if your kids want to do that? What would be your reaction?
Oh, that's totally fine. Let them fail, let them learn, let them try things on their own. Get their hearts broken early in life. Yeah. I think it builds character. So
if your daughter come in one day Daddy, I want to start a startup. I don't want to go to college.
That's okay, and I'll support it. But hopefully they also see that college has its merits. But if my daughter says she's dating an Egyptian guy in a random country I'm not in, I think I'll probably freak out, just like my father-in-law freaked out. So
yeah. All right, sorry, back to Viki. Okay, so you have over 160 languages on your site right now.
200 now, actually. Yeah.
200 now, wow, cool. So how many active users do you have on your site?
We have about 30 million. We have about 21 million mobile device installs. And we're spanning the globe. And I think when I was talking with Willis and some of the team here, when we were in Japan at New Economy Summit, we showed some slides that you can see shows now spanning every country. We had a recent Japanese drama that was viewed everywhere except North and South Sudan. Even in North Korea, people were watching that drama, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, we span every country. And out of those 200 languages, sort of the heartwarming part for us is about 50 of them are endangered languages. So sometimes we get groups of people come to us and say, there's only 10,000 people speaking this language. Can you add that language on Viki so we can translate dramas and help?
That? Wow.
Yeah, we do. So,
okay, that's cool. So how big is your team? How big is your Viki team right now?
Kent Liu, our CFO, is here, and I always say that we have 40 people. He said we have more than 70. Yeah. And everyone on Viki here should actually get a pat on the back. These are the guys who built it. So, Kent, how many people we have? 70-something? Mid-70s.
70,
about
right.
45 in Singapore, about 15 in San Francisco. That team is growing fast. And we have a few here and there in Japan, China, Indonesia, and Korea.
So where's your next office?
I don't know, but Europe and Latin America are growing fairly fast. Part of the Rakuten family, Waki already is in the UK and Spain. So we're working very closely with them. So I think we probably have that market covered. But maybe covering Latin America, be it out of Miami or somewhere like Brazil or Mexico could make sense.
Okay,
it's growing fast and organically, so we have to pay attention to Latin.
Coming to Bangkok?
Well, Bangkok, we do a lot of trips. Like work-wise, we're talking with a lot of telcos. Yeah. We work closely with Sinuk as a partner on the ground as well. So, yeah, I think we'll be in and out. I don't know if we need an office yet, but I think it'd be nice.
So what is the growth do you expect to see by the end of this year for your site?
In terms of user base?
Yeah.
Yeah, not revenues, right? But
no.
We
will get to that,
yes.
we'll promise.
So, yeah, that's actually interesting too. As a venture startup, you're always thinking growth. Once there is an acquisition, you start maturing a little bit, and you have to balance things. But we always said that at the beginning of every year, we set a target to double. So I'd love to grow at least another 10, 20 million users this year, if we can.
10, 20?
But user numbers are not everything that drive it, because the video site, like you have to pay attention to metrics like minutes viewed, how many video starts you get, what your ad rates are, what your fill rates are. Words translated on Viki are very important for us. Mobile downloads are important. So there are many different metrics to look at it, and lots of micro metrics at different levels as well.
All right. So since you just mentioned revenue, what's your revenue?
It's growing.
Well,
Revenues are growing. We're a public company now.
What is the rate of
figures. You got to wait for the quarterly results. Can we do quarterly results? No.
No.
Can't say
Why not?
I didn't know he's going to be here.
Yeah.
No, revenues are doing well. I mean, we have a new revenue stream called Viki Pass, which is a little bit of a subscription play. It's $3.99 worldwide, and what you get is no advertising, and you get product in HD, so you can see any show that's available in HD. And surprisingly, we thought just the adoption will be in the US. There is global adoption for that product at the right price point. And if you are a global product, we see a lot of people from France, UK, Indonesia, Singapore. It's sizable, so it's actually fragmented in a healthy way. And we syndicate content as well. That's a big revenue stream for us now. That's taking the best of our shows and putting it on Netflix, let's say in Latin America. Netflix will take our content in Spanish and Portuguese subtitles and open up LATAM. Yeah. So they don't have to worry about subtitles. We cherry-pick the shows and they can open up 40-plus countries. Okay. So that's a third model, advertising, syndication, and Viki Pass.
That's interesting. So let's talk a little bit about the life after Rakuten. So how's it been? The up and down, the good and bad.
You know, surprisingly good. I was a little worried 3 months
Let's just pretend there's no Rakuten people in here.
No, even if there is Rakuten, even if Mikitani is here, I'd say the same thing, because it's been refreshing. So everything has to be open. So they've been a great acquirer, and one of the reasons for that is I think there is very clear alignment at the vision level. So when you have a board, sometimes the board is helpful, sometimes the board wants you to help them if they're strategics. In the case of Rakuten, it's been how they can help. Now, the challenge has been there are a lot of different businesses, and to take a lot of different businesses and align them in one direction sometimes takes some juggling and alignment at a intra-company level. But Mickey has gotten out of the way. In fact, he spends a lot of time with us to make Viki work for Rakuten and for us. When I went to Japan, he took me to every CEO of the broadcasting companies to be able to license Japanese content. And then we went to the publishers, the same thing, because publishers sometimes are on the right. Internationally, he does the same. So it's been a good experience. We're growing faster than we were growing before. And at the same time, there's rigor. So I think that rigor was new to us when we had a board. Chamath Palapatia, one of our first investors and advisors, He was head of growth at Facebook, and he told us we should focus on 5 things. Number 1, growth. Number 2, growth. Number 3, growth. Number 4, community, then revenues. So I think revenues has moved a little bit up, and it's a good thing. So I'm learning a lot in the process, and we're attracting tremendous amount of talent. My concern was it's not a Google, it's not a Yahoo, and it's good maybe we didn't go in that direction. Like, do people know Rakuten? And once they understand the team and the vision, it's amazing. You're able to build talent.
How did your team take it though? Like, has your management style changed, or the culture changed at all?
I don't know, but I'm focused more on culture. I think that's really important. I'd like to think we're fairly rigorous, analytical, but at the same time fun. It's not a job for us. Like, it has to be something bigger than that. It has to be a product that matters, and I think that's in the fiber and the DNA of Viki. But with Rakuten, it's also a big startup in a way. I mean, we're competing with Amazon. Yeah. So long as you're sort of punching above your weight, it's a startup. But I can tell you for the team, initially it was a little bit of a surprise because the news leaked. So Kara Swisher, actually, Wall Street Journal, leaked the news a couple days before the deal came out, and I had to scramble and write the team. So by the time I got here to talk, and I want to talk with all the teams in advance, the team already knew, so people were just like staring, like, what just happened? Yeah. But I think over time it became a little clear that this is better for us. We can play the long game. We don't have to chase funding every 12 months, and not being in the valley sometimes hurt. And we were able to just focus on strategy, finally, being able to shape our growth instead of just being a little more ad hoc to chase the growth.
Yeah. So, but you said the news was like leaked before, but you never actually confirmed that was 200 million, the acquisition?
We haven't confirmed numbers, but what I can confirm today is that we did exit the Rakuten.
What?
Come on. We never confirmed the numbers, no.
You promised me that you would say that.
Did I? No.
Yeah. So
maybe it's 200, maybe it's above, maybe it's below. I think there was a reason, guys, I'm just teasing. So there was a reason we basically didn't announce it. We wanted to focus on the product, on the business, on the synergies. And there was no legal requirement to disclose it. And at the same time, we wanted to make sure it's right for Rakuten and for us, so there's no distraction on the marketplace.
Well, is it like above or below a lot, or?
Or it was, I think it was right for Rakuten and right for us. And timing was very important so we can grow it.
All right.
You're tough? It's good.
So, do you have like future plan to work with other like Rakuten content, companies like Viki, I mean Viber or Wowki, stuff like that? Since you are under like Rakuten.
Yeah, so Rakuten has 3 distinct businesses, and they're, at a very rough sense, e-commerce. So think Amazon for the rest of the world. There's financial services that can have things like insurance, credit cards, etc. Then there's digital. And the digital ecosystem is Viki. On the content side, there's Kobo, if you will, on the publishing side, and the app side for e-readers. And then now there's Viber. So we built a massive funnel above us. Viber numbers now are public. I mean, we're growing 1 million users a day. It's been phenomenal. And it's very global like Viki is. So you can funnel some of that traffic down to Viki. And from Viki, you can funnel it down to others. And with Willis, I was mentioning the same. So the ecosystem is growing strong. We can reach more than 500 people now globally and growing faster. So we're trying to figure out the right way of integrating all that together without really
that would be like powerful if you guys like ever integrate.
It's been great.
Content.
Yeah. Just yesterday, actually, Talmon, the CEO of Viber, Mickey and I were brainstorming about the next phase of things and how it also makes sense for our business. And it's exciting. It's actually really exciting. The next 6 months, I'd love to see how this shapes up.
So in the next 6 months, we will see something great coming, I guess.
Hope so.
Wow. Okay. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about like piracy. Like how in this region the content, like we have that piracy issue. Like, what do you think of that? Like, how did that affect your business?
So fan subbing has been around since the 80s, right? If you look at manga or if you look at anime, it's nothing new, but they're always labeled as pirates. And sometimes I have issue with the word piracy. You have passionate fans that are trying to interact with the content or consume content. And they would pay quite a bit of money for it if they were able to have access to it. So I think there are different grades, if you will, when you mention the word. But in our case, we created a legal playground for fans to come and interact with the content. The hardest part of building Viki was not licensing the content. If you paid money, you could get it. But it was actually being able to convince content owners that fans can create value, can create quality translations. So the faster we translate the more it eats into piracy, if you will, because there is one legal source where people can come and watch a show in 50 different languages. We have some in 70 languages now. So the faster the translations are, sometimes it's 2 or 3 hours in our case. It's lightning fast. Things are set up. The team is set.
So
500 people translating together.
The cloud sourcing part is like your key. So that
can
beat
so
the piracy.
That's the heartbeat of Viki. The community element is the heartbeat.
So you think the community can drive, like, to help push the piracy issue?
So not the piracy issue per se, depending on how you're asking it, but what they can do is they create a playground for content owners and the fans to come together.
Yeah.
And this is a place where all of a sudden you're opening entirely new marketplaces. So for our Korean dramas, for example, in the US, more than 80% of the viewers are not even Asian. They're African American, they're Latin American. So all of a sudden you're opening an entire new market. So you're not competing for the slices of the pie, basically, you're increasing the size of the pie. Yeah. And that's really important. So we are for the fans and by the fans, and that's the one thing that has to stay true, exit or not, that we had to put that front and center. Okay. That's what makes us tick.
All right, exit or not, that's a good one. So on the next one, so, like, what were your thought process? Because you would, like, we're going to raise Series C's, right, before you were acquired. That's right. So, what went through your mind, like, when you were deciding between Rakuten or raising another round?
So when we were looking at Rakuten, initially it was for investment. We were not thinking exit at that point. And literally it happened within a month. I think I met Miki Tani, the CEO of Rakuten, about 8 or 9 times in that span of 1 month. And things started progressing. It was around the time I was in the US for the summer, looking to grow the business. We had a couple of options for a Series C. But I was trying to think, what happens 12 months, 18 months, a few years out? What is it that we really want to build? And I think that alignment at a vision level, there was a moment where we said, okay, really interesting here. It's not about the numbers. It's how big can we make it later. Maybe it's 1 step back, but it's going to be 4 or 5 steps forward. And I think there was that moment where we felt at a business level for Rakuten, trying to do the same thing at a much larger level than we are, but us as a small level at Rakuten also trying to compete above our weight. It made sense. So fundraising is also exhausting. Honestly, like as a CEO, I felt I'm always fundraising. And even the whole selling process is something that I don't necessarily enjoy. And as a CEO, you always have to be selling. Like, I want the product to sell itself. But it was exhausting. I really wanted to focus on the basics, the fundamentals. And sometimes I felt like a fraud in front of our team. We always say we're going back to the basics. Let's get the basics right. But you have KPIs to hit or targets, or you need to show investors or potential investors certain numbers, and you got to be on that trajectory. I wanted to step back and focus on the basics, get the product right, get the community element right. There's so much more we can do still. So and it was an opportunity for me to focus on that.
Sorry. So what if you can give, like, advice to startups, who, like, have to decide between moving forward on the fundraising part or, decide to exit? Like, what would be the criteria that, like, have to reevaluate, stuff like that?
I mean, it depends on the startup and what they want to do. If you're building a company that fits a very specific time in the marketplace and for a very specific reason, like, you might want to consider an exit. So an example there could be you are building in a market that's growing very fast. Let's say you're in the mobile game space and it was a couple of years ago, and if a Zynga exit made sense, you don't want to miss the timing. Timing is really, really important with exits as well. If we did an exit, maybe 6 months from now we're raising capital again. But at the end of the day, you have to be, I guess, a little bit crazy. Like, you have to stay the course. The highs and lows are very high. So funding or not, you want to know what it is that you want to do. Funding always is good to raise when you don't need it, because you're going to be able to negotiate better. So raise money when you don't need it. You'll get much better terms. And always raise a little bit more than you need, because the runway really helps. I can't remember how many times where we got in trouble. We're like, okay, we're pushing this to the max. Shit, we might not have money 3 months from now. That happened over and over, like in the 4-year period, where we had to just start figuring out either we turn on monetization or do things that keeps us afloat. But that's how it is. Push it to the limit. And then if you don't push yourself to the limit and face a wall, you don't know where you can go from there. You have to go left, right, up, down, dig. So it's good to face the wall sometimes, and then the answer might present itself, exit or funding.
Yeah. So what do you think, like, Viki would be like right now if you weren't, being with Rakuten right now? So
maybe we probably had to focus more on the growth side of things, but I'd like to think things were shaping up. It was a good time for us. I think the team was really, really solid at Viki. Like, it's something that, if you ask me what I really care about Viki, team would be one of them. I think we have a really passionate team. We're building really great product at this stage. So we would have focused more on the product right now, but Rakuten turbocharged it a little bit.
Yeah.
It allowed us to actually focus on the right areas. And I feel now I'm able to say no to 8 out of 10 things maybe. Before, anything shiny we would sort of jump on because there could be growth about it. So I think we're a little smarter about what we focus on.
So
maybe we would have been more distracted before.
Like, there were no shoulda, woulda, coulda moment after you know.
Say that again?
Like, there were no shoulda, woulda, coulda, like, moment.
No. Funny enough, like I was worried maybe it would be the case. Frankly, also, like, I've spent time in Japan, but I hadn't really worked in a big Japanese company. Dentsu was more on the consulting side, advising others, so I wasn't sure what I was getting into. But you got to believe at a certain level. And I like Mickey, I like the team around him, and I felt it's making sense. And it turned out to be great. And I'd like to think the team feels the same way. The Viki DNA hasn't changed. This the entire team. We're growing it. If you go to the Viki office, it looks just like it was before. There's one poster from Rakuten that says "Small is beautiful." Keep it lean. I think besides that, it's all Viki.
Yeah. So, what do you see the future of content like industry? Like,
So, I think it's changing drastically over time, which is really interesting. Before Viki, or at least while I was playing around with Viki as a project, I was also at NBC Universal on the distribution and content side. And frankly, we didn't have data to figure out what markets we should go into. And for the market to grow for content owners, you have to look international. There are $1 trillion, like, basically targets over the next 10, 20 years for them to go to if you get all the MPAA together. But they don't know where to go after. So I think eventually content is going to start getting a lot more global early rather than waiting on holdback windows.
Yeah.
Typically, you have to wait 6 months before you get to DVD. And after the DVD, you have to wait another 3 months to get to VOD. I think that's going to get pretty disrupted. You're going to see digital not being referred to as pennies compared to the analog dollars because it's becoming serious revenues right now. And I'd like to think that Hollywood will start thinking that way as well. So I think disruption is going to be at the Hollywood content end, where it's going to be a lot more global, a lot faster. And I'm seeing it happening. I mean, if you look at Popcorn Time and other products in the market, people are starting to think fans are everywhere. Now we got to figure out how to go find them. Highly, highly fragmented market base. Most Hollywood films now are not necessarily doing more money in the domestic market than the international. Before it was mostly domestic. Now international revenues are huge. If you open that up, I think the market can grow much faster.
Yeah, I get the global part, but I'm still curious though. Like, why would you start? Why did you start in Asia? Like, like I get the translation, I get the variety of like languages that we have here, but why didn't you start like, let's say Europe? Because they have so many languages there too, and
Yeah, we started in the Bay Area, so we also started very global.
Yeah, but you focus here. Like the languages that
actually, US is our largest market. So if you look at our global footprint, US, North America is by far the largest market. Then you have Latin America, Europe, and here about the same. But I'll tell you why we went very global. There are other companies that focus on one genre or one market, go very deep, and there's a lot of validity in it. Frankly, in our case, we're building a market that didn't exist. There hadn't been a play where you're building a content distribution company bottom up with a community. You can throw a lot of money at it, like $1 billion a year, like a Netflix or a Hulu, which spends maybe about $500,000 on it. Or you can have a technology play like a YouTube, Tudo, or Yoku. But for us, it was bottom up, and you have to be global to learn from the data. Just I wanted to know what works where. I wouldn't have known that the Middle East would be a huge market for Korean shows. Or looking at our Japanese shows, like Lithuanian is one of the first languages that gets translated for Japanese stuff. So if we weren't global, we wouldn't have learned. And I wanted to learn from the data the first year or two.
All right, so we're running out of time. So the last question would be, what do you expect Wiki to be making by the end of this year?
In terms of
revenue.
Good things for the world? In terms of revenue? I would say, and can't cover your ears, that probably we should triple from where we are today.
Triple?
Yeah.
And where
but I won't tell you where we are today.
Would be?
You keep pressing me on the revenue. Actually, I'll tell you that this spin has been great. To be able to monetize, you need to hit a critical mass in terms of a user base. Even for advertising, we work with the top 30 brands right now. We have also partners on the programmatic. Google has been great to us. So we're starting to see that's growing multiple fold, even month over month. So it's been healthy. Let us surprise you one day with some numbers. So.
Well, surprise us. Well,
is that fair?
Yeah, okay. Well, that's good enough. I promise you not to push too much. All right, thank you.
Thanks for your time.